Okay, so I'm talking about managing your people, right? This is by special request. There's some worksheets for you. Now, this segment sits in context with the other people management trainings, right? Which is hire them well in the first place, hire good ones in the first place, lead them, and set a great culture, right? So you need to invest your energy in hiring good people in the first place, because that makes all the difference. You need to lead them so they want to follow you and so they know the plan and they're kind of on board with it and they understand their place in the big plan, in the bigger picture. And you need to manage them so they know what to do and so they get feedback, so they keep doing the right stuff, okay, and stop doing the wrong stuff. And then you need to set a culture so they want to stay and they feel looked after. That's important too, right? So right now we're going to focus on the managing part, okay? So that feedback loop, right? So they're clear what you want and you give them feedback along the way. We're focusing on that right now, okay? And of course, what I mean, right, really is the daily process of making sure they're supported to do their job well, right? So they know what they're responsible for, what's expected from them. I'm going to start with job descriptions and reviews, okay? So you start by making sure everyone's clear what their job is and what they're responsible for. And then you review them periodically, right? Once or twice a year is plenty. Right, but you take the time out to go, how do we think you're doing? You're using the job description as a kind of a guide to what they should be doing, you know. So if there's 4 or 5 things on there that they should be doing, you can ask them how they think they're doing in each one of them. And you can tell them how you think they're doing and you can see how in alignment you are, right? There's a written process for all this. I'm not going to go massively into the details of how to run a review because of the video. Okay, but that sort of sets the scene, doesn't it? Having a job description and a review process. It sets you up in the first place. We're going to have a little look at your organization chart in a minute, right? I'm going to get you to draw it out as it is now. Who's responsible for what in your business? Right, we need to think about what your teams are and who reports to you and who reports to who. Right, it's a mistake for you to try and manage everybody. So you should start building a hierarchy. Okay, because if you start trying to manage, they reckon managing 8 people is a full-time job. So if you're trying to manage more than 3 or 4 and run the business and be the salesperson, you're going to run yourself ragged and then you're going to perform badly, right? So think about a hierarchy and what your hierarchy should look like, or you'll spend all your time dealing with shit for people. Okay, managing takes time and attention, right? And one of the big frustrations people have with managing their team is they don't do it really. They don't pay it proper attention because they've got all these other jobs to do. And then the people don't perform very well. And then everyone's pissed off. So don't do that. You have to give it time and attention, which means you have to set out a hierarchy and delegate some of that responsibility to other people as well. Right? Or you'll drive yourself crazy. And the next thing we have then, right, we've got the job descriptions. We've got your hierarchy. I want you to do your daily huddles and your weekly operations meetings. That's the structure for you to communicate clearly with everybody. Okay? So the daily meetings, the huddles with your direct reports, and the weekly meetings with each of your teams. You've probably got more than one team. You know, thinking about most of you, you've got an admin team and a field team, maybe a couple of field teams, and you can meet with each team to think about what's next week's got in store. Okay, and that's really what it's for, right? It's a simple cycle of how did last week go, what do we need to know, and let's plan next week. They should be quite short meetings, right? The daily huddle is how was yesterday, what do we need to know, what's coming up today, what help do you need, right? And it's about supporting them and giving them what they need before the day starts. Then they don't need to ring you up all day because you've already answered it in your planning session. And it's supposed to be, you know, those American football things where they get in the huddle and then decide to play, and then they come out and they're like, woo, woo, woo. Right? It's that. It's meant to be a huddle. It's meant to be a little short, put your heads together, plan the day for tomorrow, get back to work, right? So it should be short and sharp. It should be on the phone or on a Zoom or something, right? It's not a sit down, cup of coffee daily thing. So it's a quick phone call. Okay. So we've moved from everyone knowing their job and getting feedback every year to daily and weekly feedback loops, and then support to help them do their jobs, right? So this is how they get support from you to figure out what to do today, to figure out how to map today out or plan it, or right. It's identifying problems and obstacles before they come, anticipating them, and helping people be ready to deal with it. Okay. Remember, the biggest problem with people's performance is usually not knowing what to do and then either guessing or figuring it out for themselves or calling you to ask. And they're the biggest frustrations people articulate to me from their people. And this process, this like operational planning and communicating process, addresses both of those problems, doesn't it? It's a forum for them to ask their questions and make sure they've clearly understood what's happening or what they're expected to do. All right, so this is about building a framework for communication about today's jobs or this week's jobs. So a little bit of context. If someone's doing a job, we've got some written communication about the job, haven't we? We've got a quote. And if we're good boys and girls, we've turned our quote into a job card or a project plan, haven't we? You should have, right? So there should be some written instructions as to what's expected. Barry, we were talking about it just before. Right, that's what I'm referring to, right? If you're not doing that, you probably should be doing that. Right, and there should be a written system and a checklist that they've been trained on as well, right? Because even a job like, I don't know, what did we say, Barry? Fixing the tiles in a shower cubicle, right? That's a series of systems, isn't it? There's taking the old broken tiles off, there's waterproofing it again, there's putting the new tiles on, there's grouting it, right? There's cleaning up, right? There's a few sets of systems to follow. So every job card should say this is what you're expected to do, and then there should be somewhere that says this is how you do each of those little jobs that they can go and refer to and look up in the library. Right? If you haven't got this stuff written up yet, things won't be going as well. You'll be dealing with that, the fallout for not having good instructions for everybody, right? For the fact that they're guessing or doing it from first principles every time or something, right? You'll probably have, frustrations about the quality of the work they do, maybe some callbacks or more callbacks than you think is reasonable and fair. Maybe lots of questions that you have to field all day. A lot of people complain to me that that's how their day is spent, right? It's fixing things for everybody, answering all their questions and dealing with all their shit that isn't going quite right. And it's because you didn't systematize properly, right? You didn't write the instructions out, so they weren't really sure what to do, so they had to ask. So at some point, you need to give people clear instructions about what needs doing. Right, so for today, let's assume you've got a system for properly communicating what they need to do every day, right? Not their jobs, but today's jobs and this week's jobs, right? So you've got your job cards or something. And then let's talk about this framework for managing. So if we get the worksheets, look at that, right? I'm going to encourage you to meet daily with your direct reports or your team leaders. I'm also going to encourage you to make it 2 or 3, not 5 or 6. Right? Help them plan their day, help them make sure it goes well. Right? And amazingly, what it does is it prevents all the calls and it prevents all the mistakes, or it reduces the mistakes and it reduces the number of calls. So that sounds like another fucking job that John's trying to make me do. What actually happens is you free up time because you don't get all the phone calls throughout the day. Right? So make yourself do it. The next thing is your direct reports or your team leaders or whoever, they have to do a daily huddle with the people in their team, so that their people are getting the same kind of support from their boss, okay? It has to kind of cascade down your hierarchy a bit. It's no use just picking 1 or 2 of your guys to meet and say, how's your day going? If they then just fuck off and blurt instructions at their guys and don't support them, teach them this process. Right? And then you have a weekly operations meeting with each of your teams for the whole team. Okay, and you're going to review last week and plan the week to come. What went right, what went wrong last week, what do we need to do? And then what do we need to do to make sure this week ahead goes well as well? Right? And you're planning around things like who's going to be off sick or who's going to be on holiday. Right? You're planning around making sure people remember to do their jobs. Right? And they're both meant to be short and sharp, right? These are not talk fests. These are dishing jobs and responsibilities out for people and making sure everything goes smoothly. So keep them short, right? Keep them short, keep them relevant. What do we need to do? What help do you need? Does that make sense? As a little communications framework. Well, good. Then let's do our exercise. I believe I've done that bit. Let me go to the iPad. So let's think about managing your people. Write the names of all your people on there. Now, Lawson and Toby, you've got a big list. I know this isn't enough of a worksheet for you, but somewhere there's a spare page or two. You can write the extra names on there. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Well, I wonder why I don't have any chocolate. It's because I'm a fat pig and I've already eaten it, isn't it? Right. How are you going writing the names of all your people in there? Your next task is to write yes or no in the job description column, which means do they have a written job description that they've seen and signed or accepted? And if they don't, you've got some jobs to do. Right, and in the next column, do they have an annual or twice a year review? And is the next one scheduled in? And if the answer to that is no, you've got some jobs to do. Write them on your jobs list. I can't emphasize enough that doing this properly makes your team perform better and makes your life better. Right, makes them perform better. You have fewer fuck ups and fewer frustrations. They feel more looked after and they perform better. So it's not just a boring chore. Right? It's what makes your team perform. And this is one of those shifts you need to make, right? What got you here won't get you there. You shift from thinking, oh, I need to be on the tools doing my jobs, or I need to be on the sales doing my jobs. Your job's to help them do their work now. That's the change, right? A good proportion of your work, your job, is to help them do their jobs well. Okay. So I'll write mine in. John, Lindsay, Emily, David, Dean House, Melcar, Bree. Have I missed anybody? No. Have we all got job descriptions? No, I don't think I have one. Do I have one, Lindsay?
You do. We do. We have a document with job descriptions because we went through this when we were doing reviews and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I think we all have one, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. David, I'd say not. Melcar.
We do.
Also probably not.
No, we have for David and Bree. We wrote them up before they were hired.
Did we? Well done us.
You're following your process.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I think I would have gave them all a job description when they were hired, but I don't think it's anything that we ever like review that job description. If that makes sense.
So then you need to schedule some reviews, right? You need to go, right, starting to do annual reviews. We're going to look at your job description and we're going to figure out if we think you're doing a good job, what you need to get better at, what I need to do to help you get better, maybe what training you need, maybe talk about your career progression, what you want from that. There's a process for this, okay? So don't stress too much about writing down notes on what I'm saying. But the idea is it helps them know what they're doing well and what not so well, what they need to work on. It helps you know what you need to help them with. So people might say, I'm not very good at time management. You could help them with that. Or I want to learn this technical skill, or I want to move up and be a team leader, or all those things. So
as we're looking to delegate, we might need to review these job descriptions then.
that's right. You might change them. If you start delegating things to them, you add that thing into their job description. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, David, I haven't done a review with you yet, have I? It's too new. Okay, so you might do something like this. We might go, I probably should instigate reviews with David and Bree. They'd probably find it useful. That's the kind of process I want you to go through now. And with your org chart, what are we doing? I haven't drawn my org chart out any time lately.
We have that functional, like, trades.
We do. I want you to draw your org chart first. Okay. Let me do it like this. David and Bree. Lindsay manages everybody else. Venus. Emily Melker. Like that, right? How does yours look? I want to do so. I'm going to come back to that one, Lindsay, in a minute. What I want you to do with this is decide who you do reviews with, right? Who you do daily huddles with. So I should probably be doing a daily huddle with Lindsay and with David and Bree. And if I'm honest, I'm not very diligent at that. We do weekly operations and meetings. And I know Lindsay does daily huddles with Venus and Emily and Melka. Mike has to go. Thanks, Mike. I'm guessing he's gone.
I put an example at the job description when we went through trying to find a coach salesperson. So I just popped that in Google Docs.
Can you see that?
Yeah. So we went through a job description, tasks, and then we thought through responsibilities, and then what would take over the onboarding, and then I took over the onboarding.
Yeah.
And wrote a whole onboarding process for everybody. And like got them set with their tech and all of that. And I can show you what an onboarding thing looked like. Coach onboarding. I wrote a coach onboarding guide.
And if you recall, there's some job descriptions for trades roles in the Facebook group. I think Barry wrote one for one of his people.
Yeah.
He shared his. Somebody else might have too. There's a few.
Looks like you're going to be screwed without Lindsay, John.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm working on handovers.
Yeah.
So there's an example of an onboarding.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a coach onboarding, or a salesperson onboarding, really, wasn't it?
Well, it was both. Basically, I went through a process of making sure that their tech was set up. We had a couple calls. We had them listen to a bunch of calls that John does already. We already had like a recording thing in process.
Yeah.
So there was kind of like a two-step to hiring and then onboarding and then checking in.
Yeah.
It probably took us 3 or 4 weeks to do it all properly.
Yeah. That sounds right, doesn't it, David? And then we've got these Loom videos, right? How to find tasks assigned to you. There's a video to watch there.
Yeah. So I use Loom.
I don't want you to get too sucked into the detail of this right now, right? What I'm hoping for you to do today is decide which of your people do or don't need a proper job description and set up a review for them. And then nominate your people to do your daily huddles with and commit yourself to doing them. Okay. which is the next page. Let me go back to my thing. Sorry, Lindsay, I had to stop us. I'm getting too excited about Loom calls and things.
Yeah,
Who are
totally.
you going to do a daily huddle with, right? Write your names. So for me, it's, who was it? Lindsay, David, and Brie. And who will they do a daily huddle with? Lindsay will do one with Melka, Venus, and Emily.
And I also want to note that a part of the daily huddle, it's not always just a phone call because everybody says that they get exhausted by meetings. So sometimes it's just chatting for us. I mean, that works for us because we're on a digital and doing things. But like always having a line open to be able to check in.
Yeah. This is a specific process that's useful. And maybe daily's too often. Right. I think for tradies, daily's right? Before they go out to face their day, help them figure out what they've got on and how to manage it. Right. That's really what its purpose is. My boss used to do it to me when I was at Optus. He used to leave the office and call you as soon as he got in his car and go, how'd you go today? How'd you go with that meeting you had then? How did you go with this thing you were doing? What's happening tomorrow? And then he was gone, right? Fuck off now. And he'd obviously do all of us on the way home from work while he sat in the traffic. It was really useful. I found it very useful for him to be quizzing me on what I was planning for tomorrow. Because if I didn't have any plans, made one quick. Right, so it focused me a bit. It was useful. And which are your teams? How many teams do you have? So we have a sales team and a back office team. It's really, because we're so small, we have a finance meeting where we talk about admin and finance, and we have a sales team meeting where we talk about sales and marketing stuff. Right, so we have two. Which teams do you need to meet with operationally? Right, do you see what I'm doing here? I'm trying to make you commit to doing the thing. Okay. This went quicker than I was thinking. Who has a question? Who's committed to doing some daily huddles and some job descriptions and some reviews? Good. Well done.
I think, John, more this for me so far is just reinforcing a few things that I've missed along the way.
I think we neglect it, right? This is the stuff that's easy to neglect and that shows up kind of later when we go, oh, they're not quite doing like how I want. Right? I'm getting too many calls, or they don't quite have the same understanding of how to do things that I want, or something. Yeah, good on you, Thomas. Thomas will be touching in with his 2 trades with more structure at the start of the day. So for a daily huddle, you should have a note, right? There should be notes. For some of you guys who are on sites, a site diary is a good place for the note, right? You open the site diary and you go, right, what's on today? What do we need to know from yesterday is where it starts. How did yesterday go? What do we need to know? What do we need to take care of that didn't happen or something? Right, and you write it down and you assign it to somebody. And then you go, what's happening today? What are we planning to do today? What do we need to know? What help do you need? You write that down as well, right? And if you need to give them any help, you have to go and do it. So it's really that simple and agenda. That's the agenda. Yesterday, what help do you need? Today, what help do you need? With a note, so that tomorrow you can look at the note and go, how did you go with that? You don't have to try and remember. Okay, so if it's in a site diary or an electronic site diary, that's useful. That's a useful way of doing it. Right? There are site diary apps now that everyone can access with their phones and things. If you have a job management system, that might be a place you can do it. A Google Doc's fine. I know Matt Russell, who jumped in before, they use a Google Doc. Thomas says, I'm just drawing my org chart, made me realize where our hierarchy is failing. Yeah, that's important, right? Don't try and manage too many people, right? Give people the responsibility to manage a couple of people so that you don't have to. We will just, like I said, run around ragged. You know, looking
Yeah,
after
all
people.
lines point to me at the moment.
Yeah, right. It's fucked, isn't it? It kills you. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably have two teams, right? Or three. You've got what, 6 plumbers and 3 in the office.
Yeah.
That's 2 teams. You could have 2 team leaders, an admin team leader and a plumber's team leader, and you could promote somebody into each of those roles and make them do the daily huddles with everybody, and you do a daily huddle with the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And free up more time for you to be, you know, building your quoting processes and out there doing your business development.
Yeah.
That's probably how I'd do it. It's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm ready for it, I think.
Yeah. Most of these things are a bit scary, right? That letting go of all things leading to me is a bit terrifying. I find that.
I think my concern a little bit is that the team leaders still need a lot of training too, you know?
Yeah.
People who'd move into it. So
Yeah. I suppose to reassure you, if you spend your time on that rather than managing everybody, you've got time to help them do it, if you see what I mean.
yeah.
Because if you're not careful, you'll be having 6 conversations every day, dealing with everybody and helping them out instead of 2. So at least if you've made the change, you can be teaching them on the fly while they're starting to learn it. You're still there, right? It's not like you disappeared.
Yeah.
That's how I see that one anyway. I was hoping that would reassure you a bit.
John, one of the things that I've found over the years is that consistency and constancy is really important. You know, that we set up a rhythm and then we stick to that rhythm. And a lot of people, particularly in the trade area or in the professional area, they have a preference. I use a thing called the DISC profile, and it looks at individual preferences. And, you know, specialists tend to have a very high what we call S, which is the consistency aspect of, you know, being thorough and complete and precise and accurate, and the C, which is which we call conscientiousness, which focuses on having structure and process and systems. So they and you know, most people that are specialists don't like a lot of change. Some of the people in the room today are very progressive entrepreneurs, so they will change and switch, and that's the reason they own the business and they're not working in it. And sometimes the preferences of people that are in that leadership role don't align with the preferences of the people that's actually doing the jobs. So if we can create a structure and system that will meet the needs of those experts that we have in our business, then it will tend to keep them happier. We'll become an employer of choice, we'll retain them, we won't have turnover, and we'll attract more of the right people into the business.
Yeah, thanks, David. We might have to talk more about DISC profiling later.
Yeah, it's my passion because I'm an old guy. I did my first accreditation back in 1988, and it was done manually. So we had to score all the sheets and write the words, and it's all on the computer now, which is great.
That's better, yeah. This is useful stuff, right? If you learn how to, what your people's preferences are, you can communicate with them more effectively and give them the stuff they need better. So it's useful exercises to do. Lindsay had us doing one called Love Languages, didn't you, Lindsay?
Yeah, we did love languages. I think a long time. Oh, we all did our Myers-Briggs. We haven't done DISC, but that's just because I'm not that well versed in it. So it might be good for David to bring his expertise in that.
Well, maybe we could do a DISC. Yeah.
I think
But there are useful ways to.
Gallup's strength as well. We kind of try to help everyone.
Yeah. Right, it's good to understand each other. I know you can run into danger of thinking, oh, it's all a bit too much and it's all wasting time and taking us away from the work of the business. But a lot of this stuff about helping you work together better is a worthwhile investment. All right, I'm going to let you all have a little break. And then we've only got one more session to go, which is the kind of the reset and moving forward. Okay, so we'll do your right next thing, review your strategy and your goal. We'll close the loop on that discussion we had this morning in the momentum thingammy.